Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Xcess podcast here on YouTube. In this one, I actually have a special guest, so let me introduce him right now. Don, how you doing?
What up, James? How's it going?
Good. So for those that are not familiar with what you do here on the interwebs, why don't you explain all that kind of stuff right now?
Sure thing. For those of you on Twitter, you know me as DXDONMEGA. And if you've been following us, we've been working with Ringside Xcess for quite some time now. One of the co-host of Future Endeavors, the four-time Access Awards winner for Best Wrestling and MMA podcast. So yeah, Future Endeavors for all your wrestling info. We usually put up a new episode every Sunday night, so you can look for that, future-endeavors.com, and on Twitter at Future Endeavors. Also co-host of the entertainment show Am I on the Air? So if you're looking to keep up with all the latest and greatest in entertainment news, TV, music, movies, movie reviews, the whole nine, that's Am I on the Air on Twitter, and yeah, amiontheair.com. So glad to be here. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff that's kind of breaking news this week. So excited to talk about it.
Definitely, and all the links that Don mentioned, everything will be in the description down below, so I'll make sure to get all that done. Alright, so the big news of the week, at least so far. We don't know what's still to come, but CM Punk walked out of WWE. Backstage at Raw, he went up to Vince McMahon and he told him, you know what, I'm going home, I've had enough, and that's what that is. Note that he didn't quit. I've seen a lot of people speculate that he actually straight up quit. The confirmed reports, because there's a lot of speculation going on, and I'm sure we're going to get to that in just a bit. But Punk only said he was going home. Nothing confirmed is that he quit. He's been hurt for a while. New reports that have come out have stated that he's been burnt out and unhappy with his creative direction. And basically everything that's been going on since the news first broke late Tuesday, early Wednesday, basically everything that's been talked about is like a game of telephone on the playground. It's been ridiculous so far. So Don, your thoughts on the situation with CM Punk, and do you think things could get repaired between the two sides leading
I
into
think
WrestleMania?
I think they could probably get repaired, but it does not surprise me whatsoever when it comes to CM Punk. All I can think about with this is the Stone Cold situation from all those years back, where there's that big story of Stone Cold got to Raw that one night and they want him to lose to Brock Lesnar in a King of the Ring qualifying match, and he said nope, and he went home. And he was gone for a while, and it's very reminiscent of that situation. It sounds to me where like you said, there's a million and one stories about this situation, but from the majority of them, it seems they talked to him Monday and they told him the direction that his character was going, and that at Mania he was going to wrestle Triple H, and that he wasn't really going to be a part of the title picture for a while. And supposedly that was the last straw for him, and that's why he walked out or went home. Um, you know, it just I'm torn on the situation, because if I look at it from a fan aspect, I mean, I'm disappointed, of course. I mean, we all love CM Punk, and I mean, and he's, just so important to the WWE and everything that's been, the last couple years of entertainment. He's been that one constant. But on the other hand, I don't like this kind of baby bullshit of like, oh, I didn't get my way, so I'm going to go home. I hated when Austin did it, and I lost a lot of respect for him. And I kind of feeling the same way about Punk now. It's a job. We all go to work every day and we do a job for money, and we don't always like what we have to do at work, but we do it to get our paycheck. And lately I feel like in this past year or so, he's been kind of with that attitude of just like, oh, if I don't like what you want me to do, I'm gonna either talk shit about it in interviews, or I'm gonna vent on Twitter, or whatever the case may be. And he's come across to me as just very bitter. Is just a very bitter, sour puss in the last year and a half. Ever since he lost the title to Rock, I'll say, and it's like, the company gave you, a year plus title reign. I think that's pretty damn awesome. So,
Exactly.
it's like, I don't know where that comes into play, where people say, oh man, he doesn't get his due and he doesn't get proper attention. he got a year plus title reign, the longest reign since the mid 90s. I mean, that's something that, the company obviously backed him for a very long time there. And, it's like Mania season's always rough, and not everybody's going to be in the title picture. And I understand, if they're saying that he's pissed, because Batista's getting attention and they're not the right focus on the right people. But you know what? If anybody deserved a title shot this Mania season, it was Daniel Bryan, not CM Punk. So I don't know. I don't know the full story. We're all speculating here, but like I said, from a fan standpoint, I'm disappointed. But from a business standpoint, and I was Vince, and he told me I'm going home, I'd be like, peace and don't come back. So, there's 50 other guys waiting to take that spot, and as valuable as Punk is, what can you do, man? You got a business to run, you got to move forward, and I don't think it's okay to just say I'm going home. I know that nothing's official says that he's quit, but I take it as when you tell your job I'm going home, you're pretty much quitting at that point for the most part. I know I can't go to my boss and just be like, I'm going home today. I might still have a job, but I know that I'm going to probably be on the bubble for something. So
Yeah, can't take the risk with that.
no, I mean, you know what? I mean, it's basically saying you quit without quitting.
Yeah.
He's voicing his concern. He's saying, I'm going home. And I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. And of course, there's the flip side to it where this could always, all in wrestling, this could always be a big work too. And this is just
Yep.
to further the storyline of, his match with Triple H. So, now you got the corporate aspect of him going home, and then you play into that with Triple H going to his house and pulling him out of his house, and and God knows what to push that angle for the match at Mania. So it's hard because you hear these stories and you don't know what's the truth or what's made up, what the real feelings are. At this point, I'm taking it that it's legit. And like I said, it feels very, very reminiscent to the Stone Cold angle, and that was real, back then. But they came to an agreement later on down the road, and I feel at some point, even if this is real, they'll figure something out with Punk down the road. By Mania, maybe not. It's just going to depend. But I am, of course, very curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I am as well. I've been following, ever since the news first broke, I've been following pretty much everything. And that first night when everything first broke, it was only, that he just walked out. Nobody knew why. And then the next day, well, technically a couple hours later, everybody's saying WWE wanted him to go out and say he had a concussion and stuff like that. He had a meeting. The meeting with Vince was him talking about that he passed a concussion test and that he didn't want to lie to fans and stuff like that. It's a really weird situation, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really reminiscent of the Stone Cold Steve Austin situation, and that ended up working out. We don't know if it'll work out with Punk, but right now, the only thing that is confirmed, despite all the rumors that are out there right now, is that he is gone right now. He's home. He's probably chilling with Colt Cabana on one of their couches right now, and he's just shooting the shit right now. So it's nobody knows what's going on until he himself comes out and says something, which I don't think will happen for a long time. Now, the thing is, I think our good friends at WrestleChat.net, they ran a story from Fox Sports about Ranier Gracie. I think it was Ranier Gracie. He got a text message from Punk during his interview when talking about the situation, and Punk told him that he'll be in town in a couple of weeks. And and as you said, you thought it might be a work. That's what a lot of people are starting to think now, since WWE will be in LA, where the Gracie camp is, on February 10th, I believe. So everybody's thinking he'll just make a return there and he'll, lead to the WrestleMania match with Triple H, which might end up being changed, and we might get to that later. But, I hope they can work something out. As a fan, you want to see your favorite superstars go out there and kick ass. You want to, you just want to see them perform, do what they do best. The situation's just really sad. As you said, he's basically just giving up because he didn't get his way. And what's funny is you did mention Batista. Punk was really unhappy with Rock coming in and getting the WrestleMania headlining shot. And Rock came in for the fans. He came in to, have one big last run. We don't know if Rock's even done yet. But the thing with Batista is he's come in to, I know you're a big fan of Batista, but really he only came in to promote Guardians of the Galaxy and have his final run. And Punk's completely fine with Batista coming in and getting a WrestleMania match, but not The Rock. That seems a little bit weird, and like you said, there are reports that Punk's unhappy with Batista. I think the report was that he's unhappy that Triple H let the go-ahead for Batista getting the title shot instead of him or Daniel Bryan. It's just crazy. My mind is about to explode with everything that's gone on in the last 24 plus hours. It's nuts.
Yeah. I think I had originally read that Punk was initial reaction was he was fine with the Batista push because supposedly Batista's signed for a 2-year deal. So he's going to be back for, 2 full years for this final run. And it's not just a 6-month deal to promote Guardians and he's out, so, but, the TMZ article that came out after he walked out was kind of saying the contrary, saying that Punk was pissed that Batista got the Rumble win and that they're heading in this direction.
Yeah, it's crazy. Nuts. All right, moving on to a more not really serious topic, although really WWE is not getting affected, although when their stock came out today, people thought that Punk leaving let their stock rise, but it's been rising since the WWE Network announcement. A new segment on the Xcess podcast, Tiny Tidbits of the Week. Not so serious stories that we're going to mention, and the first one that I think everybody's really happy about is that apparently Vince Russo is involved with TNA again, as far as creative goes. Either he's actually working for them, or TNA's lead creative writer is in contact with Vince Russo to write the shows. Don, what do you think about Vince Russo possibly being involved with TNA again?
I don't really have much of a comment on that one. I mean, it doesn't shock me once again. I mean, Vince Russo finds his way back into everything. Everybody talks shit about everybody, and then they always find their way back,
Yeah.
TNA for me is really a lost cause at this point, and if he wants to come back and do something with TNA, then more power to him, especially if TNA wants his help. So we'll just let that one ride, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, especially the last couple weeks, the main events have been, as I've termed them on Twitter, when I've at least live tweeted the main events, they're hashtag Russo-rific main events. They have Russo written all over them. Anyways, the next little tidbit here is that Kenta, the known Japanese wrestling star, apparently has received a WWE tryout. He was at the Performance Center on Sunday, and he's still there actually, and there's some speculation that the TNA taping, the NXT taping tonight will feature Kenta on the show. Don, are you familiar with Kenta, and what do you think of him possibly coming to WWE following this tryout?
I'm not too familiar with Kenta. I mean, we obviously the biggest thing out of that is we know that that's where Punk got his go to sleep. So, maybe he Punk called him up and said, "Hey, I'm leaving, so you can come in now to the go to sleep." I don't know. I mean, I don't know too much about him. I haven't really seen any of his work, so I can't really say if it's a positive or negative. But it just strikes me as odd that somebody like that would want to come to NXT at this point in their career. Seems a little much of a stretch. I don't know if it's just he just feels let me do it to do it or what, but yeah, I don't have too much to kind of add for Kenta.
All right. Well, I know you don't really like talking much about TNA, but Kurt Angle recently defeated Bobby Roode on an episode of Impact, and apparently that was justice enough for him to earn his Hall of Fame spot that he turned down back before Bound for Glory.
TNA
and apparently logic. Exactly. And apparently he's also working hurt again. I think it's his knee. He did a run-in during their Dublin, Ireland show instead of working a match. So what do you think about TNA's thing with Kurt Angle and the Hall of Fame thing? And honestly, what do you think about him continuing to work hurt at 45 years old?
It just seems desperate, honestly. At this point, I feel like Kurt is just trying to hold on to something.
Like another WWE run?
I don't know if it's that though, because I feel like he could have had that already, and he keeps choosing to re-sign with TNA, which I just don't get. I honestly just don't get it. If Kurt was smart, he would have came back like 2 years ago. Did a final run, went into the Hall of Fame, the proper Hall of Fame, and
Yeah.
then retired and rested his body because the guy definitely needs rest. I mean, even though he's hurt, he still puts on amazing matches. But there's just something about him wrestling in TNA. I was a big Kurt Angle fan in WWE, and I tried to watch him in TNA, and it's just something different about him. Like it's just I don't know what it is. I can't wrap my head around it, but I can't really get into him in TNA. And I just await the day that that music hits and he comes back to WWE, because he teases it. He teases it like every time his contract's up, and he says, "You never know what my future holds." And he always talks about how he's good friends with Vince still and all this stuff. But he every time we think he's doing it, then we read, "Oh, Kurt signed for another year or two." I just wish these big name guys would just stop the nonsense with TNA, get their proper, final goodbyes where they belong. The TNA Hall of Fame, it's a stretch, man. That thing is such a stretch for them to do, doing one name a year. And then I don't understand what the hell they were thinking with Kurt Angle's induction, of like him not accepting it and then saying, well, I got some more stuff to do to earn it. And then you're going to tell me that him beating Bobby Roode was enough for him to be like, okay, I deserve it now. Like it doesn't make any sense at all. And once again, like I said, TNA logic, it just yeah, it's really frustrating because Kurt is one of the best of all time, and he's somebody that I want to see get a proper send off in the right way, and not in TNA. He needs to come home, do what he needs to do, get that WrestleMania, have another real good match, and then say his proper goodbyes in the right Hall of Fame. So, um, Kurt, it's time. Let's head on out. Yeah, but he needs to take care of his body too. I mean, the guy does push himself. I mean, I think once you win the Olympics with a broken freaking neck, it's everything else probably seems pretty tiny. So, I don't think he really understands the repercussions to his body, and he really does push himself. And I wish he would think that stuff out a little bit more. And like I said, come do the proper run, do it, work a nice lighter schedule, and then say farewell.
Yeah, and with Kurt being hurt and, continuously working with being hurt, whether it's his knee like it's reported to be this time around, or his back, or even his neck again, he has two young kids with his new wife, and you recently became a father in the past year, so you know that you'd want to, if you were in Kurt's situation, wouldn't you rather spend time with your kids as healthy as you can be while you can, instead of continuously just hurting your body, especially doing moonsaults off the top of a steel cage?
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I'm a fresh father. I mean, my daughter just passed 2 months old, so it's super fresh still. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to risk it. I mean, it does make you reevaluate your life, and you start trying to make some changes and do things that are best for your family and everything. And it's like we know how the wrestling business goes, man. One messed up moonsault is you're paralyzed, and does he want to spend the rest of his career in a wheelchair? And not being able to play with his kids. He does risk a lot, and I think he does need to think about his family just a tad bit more than his popularity and his career when it comes to, there's no need. Kurt Angle does not need to do a moonsault. He's got a great ground game. He's a very technical wrestler. Bret Hart didn't need to go do moonsaults. Let's just keep it to the mat there, Kurt.
Yeah. All right, Santino, speaking of necks, Santino Marella recently underwent neck surgery, so speed of recovery to Santino. I was kind of speculating why he hasn't been on TV. He came back after, I believe it was a ligament in his leg that he had injured, and came back for a little bit, and then he all of a sudden disappeared again. So now we know why. Santino, best of luck on your recovery. Don, anything got to say about Santino?
Yeah, just good luck. I mean, he's had a pretty rough year. I mean, he was out for quite some time in 2013. I mean, we didn't see him very much at all. And then we had heard he had like neck problems and all this stuff. And I thought he was going to be out for a long time. And then he came back at when I don't know when remember when he came back, like maybe like around SummerSlam time. He like popped back up, and then we were like, oh man, Santino's back. And he was on, he was like on programming for a couple weeks, and he disappeared again. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was hurt again. So, it's just kind of crazy. Like, obviously he needs to watch himself a little bit. I mean, it's pretty bad when you have like those kind of years like he's had and like Christian's had and stuff like that, where, you see these guys pop up once or twice in a year and then they come back and then they're gone again, because of all these injuries. And you really you got to start reevaluating your life and your career when that kind of stuff happens, man. When you've gone so many years wrestling pretty much injury free, and then all of a sudden you're injury prone now, there's a problem there, and you really need to kind of reevaluate.
Yeah,
But best of luck to him in his recovery, and we'll see him soon.
definitely. You don't need to talk about this. It's another thing with TNA. The new investor, the
Oh
mystery
God.
investor, was revealed at the tapings tonight, and it was who everybody expected: former WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar Montel Vontavious Porter. He's coming to TNA, and he's the new investor. So, best of luck to MVP there. I don't know if he's gonna still be able to use the MVP name like he did in New Japan, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I think he owns the MVP name, so I think he'll be able to use it. Um, But I'm kind of pissed about this news actually because I like MVP, and I understood him kind of like taking some time away and going to New Japan. I mean, that was something that was a I know that was a personal goal for him that he always wanted to do, was go wrestle for New Japan. And I felt like once he was kind of done with that, we would see him return kind of like Tensai, and that he'd always said, "Oh, I'll never rule out coming back to WWE, and I feel I do have another good run there and everything." And with how much of a joke TNA has been in the last year, and we hear all the constant news about people's checks bouncing and people getting paid 2 months behind, and how they're in very big financial crisis right now. Why would somebody like MVP be like, "This is a perfect time for me to join this company"? I don't get it. I don't understand the business mode for it, because if he wanted to come back to WWE, I'm sure they would open the door for him. I don't get it. I mean, I know it's a nice little role for him to come into in TNA, but at this point, why would you feel that that's a safe bet to come into the company at this point when their house shows are just so bad and their attendances are just so down right now, and the company's struggling in every which way. I don't know what would make you. I don't know. I feel like if a company tried to get me to come be a manager for them, and they were like, "Come on over, man. We're gonna hook you up, and this is gonna be a great job." And then everything I read online is like, "Stay far away from this company." I don't think I can make that decision to change my career path. So I'm just disappointed. I was really hoping that MVP was going to be back within the next year, and now you hear this news and it's just like, because I felt like he was always one of those guys too that said, "I'm a WWE guy, and if I ever came back, I would come back to WWE. I would never do TNA." Because I know a lot of those guys say that when the TNA question comes up, and and a lot of them always said, "Oh, I'm not going to do TNA. If I come back, I'm going to come back to WWE." And that's where I felt like that was what MVP has always said all along, was that his main goal was to do New Japan, and if it came down to it, and he did come back, he would come back where he belonged, and that was WWE. So um the angle just seems kind of whack, and I really am just scratching my head over the fact that he made this decision to do TNA rather than a WWE return.
Yeah, and especially also with the American Wolves going to TNA. Oh my God, ridiculous.
Now I'm very
Uh,
sad by that too.
all right. Speaking of the Wolves, I guess we'll transition right into that. They debuted on TNA 2 weeks ago as part of the beginning of the investor angle, and apparently the reason why they went to TNA instead of signing with WWE, there's been rumors that Davey Richards' botched spot with Rick Victor during their tryout match as the American Pitbulls during NXT was his fault and stuff like that. Then there were, I think it was either him or Edwards had behavioral problems that they were talking about. WWE didn't want to deal with that. And then this new thing that I read from somebody on Twitter, and I checked into it. So far, I haven't gotten anything back on it yet, though. Is apparently Davey Richards felt it was disrespectful that WWE was offering them a developmental contract and not a shot straight up to the main roster, which is what led to him, and eventually he coerced Eddie Edwards into going to TNA. So, whatever that thing is, I don't know. only they know the truth, and WWE and obviously TNA will know their sides of the truth. But apparently, their future plans, not only involving with the new investor, MVP, but apparently, sometime down the road, they will begin a feud with Christopher Daniels and Kazarian Bad Influence. Don, what do you make of the situation of them not going to WWE, all that craziness, and them just ending up in TNA like that?
Yeah, I'm bummed. I mean, I'm super, super bummed because I'm a big, Davey Richards fan. I like the dude a lot, and yeah, you hear about behavioral problems and all this and that, but I'm not gonna let that take away from his in-ring talent because I think the guy is mad talented, and we've interviewed Davey Richards on Future Endeavors before, and real nice guy, and to hear they were coming to WWE and then to see that match with the Ascension on NXT, I was stoked. It was so cool to see them, the Pit Bulls on NXT. And, I would never say that that was Davey Richards' fault for that botch. Like, that was definitely
I wouldn't
Victor's.
either.
That was Victor dropped him on his head. It wasn't
Yeah.
Davey's fault, But you know what? He got up and they finished the match. They had a good match. And I just think it's weird. We had heard all these stories about that they were on some kind of, like a temporary kind of plan with NXT where they were going to wrestle through to like March under this deal and kind of just to so they can keep an eye on them and make sure there was no attitude problems or anything like that, and from everything I had heard, he was on his best behavior and they got along with everybody backstage and everything was looking great. And I thought for sure they were going to get their contract. And then I felt like 2 weeks after I was hearing everything was going good, there was, "Oh, they're in TNA now." And I was just like, where the hell did this come from? Now they're in TNA, like, and then you hear that supposedly it was Triple H's call and that he didn't want to, deal with the attitude problems and stuff like that. But from everything I heard, there was no attitude problems. That they were on very good behavior and they were trying to get their damn deal in WWE, so they weren't going to screw it up, And
Yeah.
I don't, and I hadn't heard that Davey was pissed because they were going to go through NXT. I mean, at this point, I think everybody that knows WWE knows that that's how it works now. Regardless of what kind of name you are, when you sign, you're going to hit NXT first, until they're ready. And that just is what it is. So I don't see why. I don't feel like it was a big shock to them if they came in and they said, "Oh, you're going to be in NXT for a year," that they would throw a big temper tantrum over it. I think that's pretty common knowledge at this point. And you see all the guys that come in and guys that have very good name recognition and they're down in NXT. It just is what it is. The only guy I feel that's going to come in right now that has never been WWE and skip NXT would maybe be Sting. That would be my only guess. Outside of that, if you're just a mid card name and you're coming in, you're gonna go through NXT first. And I don't think they had a problem with that. I think they just wanted to work for the biggest company in the world. And unfortunately, some people were pushing for him and other people weren't, and they didn't get their contract. And it is very, very unfortunate because, WWE has at least been making strides in the tag team division in the last couple of years, where that division was nothing but shit. And now, we most of the time the tag team match is one of the highlights of either Raw, SmackDown, or pay per view. They've been having some awesome matches, and I think Davey and Eddie Edwards would have been an amazing addition to that tag team division. So I'm very disappointed, and sucks. I'm good for TNA to get that kind of talent, but I'm disappointed that they're not going to be in WWE.
Yeah, those rumors, I would take those with a heavy grain of salt, especially the Davey Richards thought it was a slap in the face to be in NXT for a while before going to the main roster, because like you said, it's common knowledge now that any talent, whether you're well-known or you're small, you go through NXT, and you need to learn the WWE style before you can go to the main roster and be presented in front of millions of fans. So whatever happened between them, only they know. Like the Punk situation, it's like a game of telephone right now with what happened, so only they know. But going into more WWE stuff, Total Divas Season 2. The press release came out a little bit yesterday, I believe, and Summer Rae is joining the cast, and apparently she's actually gonna stay as a somewhat bitch on the show and not be all nice with everybody. And she replaces JoJo. Now, the thing is, JoJo had a lot of no airtime during the remaining half of the first season of Total Divas, and that was on her request. Not many people do know this, but JoJo did request to have less airtime on Total Divas because she wants to put actual in-ring work ahead of reality TV, and that's very good for her. At 19 years old, going on to 20 this year, that's a very smart decision for her future. And also, I think it had something to do with WWE thinks Eva's gonna be this massive star someday. Good luck with that, WWE. But, you know, JoJo, I think, made the smart move with leaving Total Divas, or at least requesting less airtime, and now she's off the show. But people think she's gonna end up being released. She was at the Performance Center today when Triple H was doing media interviews, so I don't think she's gonna get cut. I think she'll eventually make her way on to NXT, and maybe even one day again on the main roster as an actual competing diva. So, Don, what do you think about Total Divas Season 2 and I'm sure you've seen the trailer, right? That came out?
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, no, I haven't watched the trailer. I watched the announcement video that Summer was joining. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I loved season 1 of Total Divas. It's definitely a guilty pleasure, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to season 2 starting in March, and I think Summer will be a great addition to it. She's a very interesting TV character, and I love her on NXT, and I don't think she gets to show as much of that just being out with Fandango on the main roster. And I think that it'll be cool to see a lot of that, and especially if they have her playing up kind of a bitchier role, I think it'll be interesting to see for television purposes. So I think she's a great addition. So I'm looking forward to it. As far as JoJo goes, it'll be interesting to see what plays out with her too, because, um, yeah, because we rarely saw her on that second half of the first season. She was only on, I believe, like 1 or 2 episodes, and it was for like a minute or so. And great for her if it really was just to work on performance stuff, then that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad she's changed her priority and that's where she wants to go with it. Um, it'll be interesting to see where it goes though. I mean, without her being a focal point of the show, I can see her end up getting released and just have him say, "Never mind." So, I mean, she's a tiny little chick with really no experience. So, not to say she can't get any potential down the road and with putting in hard work, but at this point, if they decided, it's not worth the time or the energy, I could see her getting kind of let go without having the show there to be that cushion for her. So we'll see what happens with JoJo, but I'm excited to see Summer join season 2.
Yeah, March 16th, I believe, is the return date at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So Total Divas Season 2, mark your calendars because it's gonna be a fun ride, especially after that trailer, which, you need to see. It's a really good trailer. It has Natalia getting slapped after calling Summer a stripper. It's very funny. So, now, let's move on to Sin Cara. The Sin Cara character, originally portrayed by Luis Alverde, and if I butcher that, I'm so sorry to the Spanish listeners, who was known as Mystico in Mexico. He was released. WWE just, had enough because he got hurt. He had wellness also in the beginning of his career, and the role was taken over by Hunico, who had the role when the original Sin Cara was out during his suspension. During an interview to promote his return to wrestling in Mexico, Mr. Alverde said he claimed that he owned the rights to the Sin Cara character, and during the interview he said that the situation would be best left to lawyers, so a court battle might ensue over the thing, but apparently he's been trying to call WWE and they've been ignoring him also. I reached out to WWE over this before I published the article from yesterday about it, and I didn't get any comment about the situation. Although another story we might mention later about Sting, because that's a hot topic as well in wrestling, I did get a little bit of information about the Sting situation, so... But anyway, yeah, no comment from WWE about the Sin Cara stuff, but Don, what do you make of this? Do you think they'll actually legitimately have a court battle over the rights to the name, and if so, do you think WWE is going to win it? Because Alverde says he has evidence to prove that he owns the character, so this will be interesting to see. Don, what do you think?
I don't know, man. It'll be interesting. I mean, this is the first I'm hearing within this past week is the first that I'm hearing that he even owns the rights to that name, because I felt that was WWE's name this whole time, because yeah, he was Mystico, you know. Mystico was his name on the indies. That's what everybody knew him as. And when he came to WWE, they dubbed him Sin Cara, So I always felt that that was WWE's trademark. And I find it, I don't know. I just feel like if he was not going to have a WWE name attached to him, he would have debuted as Mystico. So I don't really know. I don't know where the truth lies. I feel like the original Sin Cara kind of just says some shit sometimes just to say it, and we'll see. My biggest disappointment to this is I read just a couple days ago that it said that WWE's kind of given up on the Sin Cara character, and they'll keep him
Till the
around
Scooby Doo movie.
yeah, the Scooby Doo movie and for merchandise sales. And that's kind of a disappointment because I think Hunico is great as Sin Cara. I loved him in that role ever since the original time he did it when he was the Black Sin Cara, you
Sin
know.
Cara Negro.
Yeah, like it was that was great, and I think he plays the character really well, and he speaks English, and he can actually cut a promo if they wanted him to, and and I think that there's so much more of an upside to running with the character, with Hunico behind the mask, and it is kind of disappointing to read that WWE most likely is kind of over it at this point. When Del Sol comes out, then I'll probably forget a little bit more because he's amazing. But I don't know. It'll be curious to see what they end up doing with him. I was happy for Hunico because his career's never going to probably get any higher than what he would have been as Sin Cara. Unfortunately, they would have never done with anything with him outside of the mask. Um, I wish they would have just kept Hunico in the mask in the first place when he wore the blue mask down in NXT. Like that. I think taking the mask off of him was kind of the downside. But I think he's great as Sin Cara, and I like Hunico doing that high flying style, which is something they kind of took away from him when he was unmasked, and he just became, the Vato Loco Hunico riding the bicycle down to the ring. He had way more of a ground game with that character, and I like to see high flying Hunico. So I hope they don't give up. I hope that he'll kind of that they'll run with him a little bit more. I honestly really like him with Ray. And I think if pushed properly, I think they could be a very exciting, great tag team. That I feel is right there in front of them, and they kind of want to do it, but they kind of don't at the same time. I think it'd be great for Ray because we all know Ray is on the verge of another knee blowout, and I think with him in a tag team to where he's only got to wrestle half the time, teamed up with Hunico is a great pairing there, and I think that they could do something nice with that. And we keep hearing that they want to do this big attendance thing with Mask and all this stuff. Well, keep them together, man. I'm run as a tag team. Have them beat the New Age Outlaws. Let's get something going over here.
Oh god, imagine the Outlash if they beat the New Age Outlaws for the titles and not the Usos. My god. The internet would freaking explode.
What's not going to make the internet explode at this point? I think we've hit a point with the internet now where all we want to do is bitch. We're going to boo to boo because booing is the cool thing to do these days. So, that's where we're at with the basic logic of WWE's, fans lately.
Yeah. Alright, so, speaking of WWE, TNA, and New Japan Pro Wrestling from a little bit ago, Prince Devitt, I don't know if you're really familiar with him, but he runs the Bullet Club over in New Japan with Tensai's former tag team partner and the Young Bucks and all them. But anyways, apparently Devitt's New Japan Pro Wrestling contract runs out, I believe, next Friday, before he has a tour scheduled final dates with New Japan for a pay-per-view thing they're running. And apparently he's got an offer on the table from WWE, and he recently was at TNA's Dublin house show. Apparently he told TNA that he doesn't want to make a deal because apparently they were interested in him. So really it's between New Japan and WWE. Apparently Triple H is a big fan after watching a match that Devitt had with Pac, also known as now Adrian Neville in NXT, from a couple years ago, I believe. And it's said that Devitt is most interested, and it's most tempting is WWE's offer. And if he signs with WWE, he'd go straight to the main roster. So the Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards situation, and now hearing about this. What do you make of it, Don?
I'd find it very hard to believe that he would just go straight to the main roster, but if that's part of the deal that they make to get him in, then cool. I don't know too much about him, but he's another guy that when you do hear about him, you hear nothing but good stuff.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be pretty amazing. So, hey, if they could bring in more amazing talent, let's do it. Let's go for it.
All right, so there's a couple more things I want to talk about. First up is one more thing with TNA. I know it's mainly TNA. Their return to Universal. They signed a new deal with Universal Orlando. They'll be having some tapings during sporadic dates in March, April, and May. And apparently, it's not confirmed or denied yet, but they might be using a different soundstage from the one they used before Impact was their permanent home, and then the one where they recently came back to. And apparently, also, it's been known that WWE wants a physical Hall of Fame, and they're in talks with their TV deals with NBC Universal, leading to their, I believe, September, their contracts expire with NBC Universal. And apparently, it's come out that Universal is tempting WWE to re-sign with them for TV deals with the physical Hall of Fame at Universal Orlando. So who knows how long TNA will be back in Universal, if they maybe sign again down the road if WWE doesn't come in. Don, what do you think of this thing with TNA at Universal again? How long do you think it will last? And if it doesn't last long, do you see WWE signing back with NBC Universal, leading to that physical Hall of Fame somewhere within the theme park?
Uh, you know, I, if they sign that deal, I think knowing in the back of their minds that they'd be kicking TNA out as well would probably sweeten the the pot a little bit more. And it's true. I can see them being like, "All right, so we agree and we sign this, and you're gonna put us in Orlando at Universal Studios. This definitely means TNA is out, right? Oh yeah, Vince, don't worry about it. Okay, where do I sign? I think putting the physical Hall of Fame like at something like a Universal Studios is a really smart move, and I think I keep feeling like, I mean, that is the way to go. NBC Universal is a great company to be signed with. I think they have a lot of options, for TV programming, being with a company like that owns so many subsidiaries. It's a very smart business move. So yeah, TNA's residence there might be very short lived. I think it's funny that TNA had to go back there. It's kind of like they were living at home with their parents, and then they got out on their own, and then they couldn't make it, so they had to go back home to mom and dad. So,
And
that's
then they
kind.
tried again, and now they're going back.
Yeah, and it's typical, teenage, status there. So, they tried and they couldn't make it, so now they're heading back home to mommy and daddy. So, but when you go back home to mommy and daddy that second or third time, it's usually not very long lived because they don't want you there no more. So, it's a little means to an end for a couple months, and then we'll see what happens. But I have a feeling like, if the Hall of Fame is something that's part of this TV deal, yeah, within the next year, you're gonna have to see TNA find a new home.
Yeah, and the thing with that is, when TNA was back at Universal, I think it was November or December, they taped like a month and a half worth of TV during like a 3 date period. So imagine, I think they have like 3 days of Impact tapings, 2 times in March, one time for 3 days in a row in April, maybe two, and then the beginning of May they have 3 Impact tapings in a row. And either March or April they have a one night only taping as well as an actual pay-per-view taping. So they're bringing back one of their pay-per-views for April to, it might just be the, live on TV thing they've been doing lately, but whatever. But imagine how their talents are going to feel burnt out after that. They're going to be recording maybe like, I don't, maybe 6 months worth of TV in a 3 month period.
Yeah.
How do you expect your talents to do that? I don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, and it makes it not fun to watch either when it's filmed that far out. I mean, as soon as spoilers hit, I think it takes so much away from it. I mean, that's why it's like, I want NXT to be a live show so bad. Like, I'm so excited that first episode on the network is going to be live, because it's going to make it. I watch NXT every week, and it's just going to make it that much more exciting to see it live. And we know that it takes away from SmackDown as well, because you don't expect anything really cool or surprising to happen on these taped episodes. It's the same problem we have with the Raws that are done in England. You know, it's just like you hear about all the spoilers and you're like, all right, whatever, this show's gonna be blah, you know, and it just takes away from it to where when you know the show's live, you're way more, you know, inept to be like, oh, I gotta watch tonight. You never know what's gonna happen. And when TNA films so far out in advance and it's like I know what's gonna go down 3 months from now, who gives a shit then? You know, it's just like
Yeah,
there's just it makes it really just makes you not want to really care and not really care to watch because you know nothing really cool is gonna happen.
yeah.
There's no incentive to keep watching every week.
Exactly. I'm really excited about NXT being live as well. It's only a couple weeks away now. They do have that taping tonight, which I don't understand how they're going to work around the main event for the live show, having either Adrian or Bo not appear on these probably 4 tapings for after that. So how they work around that, that's going to be amazing. We'll have to wait and see. But the final topic that we're going to be getting to is Sting. So apparently he has offers from both WWE and TNA on the table, but he's not signed with either yet. TNA usually signs him every year for February, so he's got maybe a couple days to a week or two until his actual contract does expire. So he can still talk, but he can't sign anything for another 2 weeks. And we all know back in 2011 when 22111 happened, that
Mm.
whole fiasco, everybody thought it was Sting after a little bit, but it turned out to be Undertaker like everybody initially thought it would be. But the thing is, with returning to TNA, he's just going to be continuing to feud with Dixie, try to gain control of TNA. But with WWE, he has the opportunity to work with guys like Undertaker. He can work with guys like Daniel Bryan. He can work with anybody, basically, as long as, they're safe workers. Can't work with Ryback, God help him. But apparently, and I mentioned this on Twitter, I don't know if you've seen this, Rob Feinstein from RF Video, or I think RF Video, he co-founded Ring of Honor. He posted something on Facebook about it being official, and a lot of sites ran with it. I think me and Russell Chat were the only ones who didn't. But I contacted WWE PR, and they told me about, when I mentioned the Facebook post, they told me, quote, I can't speak as to why other sites would use that type of information as a source to confirm something. So they didn't confirm or deny that it was true or not, but that situation's a little bit messy, and I've been trying to make attempts at finding out about this from WWPR. That's their only comment they sent me. Everything else, there's no other comment from them. I even contacted TNA about it. No comment from TNA PR as well. Don, do you think Sting's gonna end up back in TNA? You think he's gonna come to WWE? What do you think's gonna happen?
Uh, what do I want to happen and what do I think is going to happen? Well, what I want to happen is for him to finally come to WWE. What I think is going to happen is he's probably going to make another dumb decision for like the 5th year in a row and re-sign with TNA. There's something about Sting that truly feel he just wants to be that guy that when he retires and does officially walk away, it'll make him just be that much more at peace to say, I was the one guy that never worked for Vince. And I truly feel that that's his just deep down motive to not sign, is he doesn't want to be the guy that sold out, so to speak, and went to Vince McMahon. Um, and it just sucks because, I know in the past, like say when WCW first closed and they wanted Sting, he hesitated because he didn't want to be treated like a WCW guy, because we know WWE has been pretty notorious in treating, the WCW guys not as fairly as their homebred guys. And, I know that that was a concern of his, was I'm going to go in, they're going to misuse me, they're going to fuck me up, and I'm going to be looked upon, it's going to mess with my career and my legacy. So he always stayed away. Then he went to TNA, and that was all well and good. I never thought he was going to stay in TNA as long as he did. And I felt in these last couple of years, I was very, I thought for sure he was going to come to WWE. And then he didn't. The 221 thing, that was the closest I think we ever were, because it
Yeah,
was
that
just
that seemed to be the closest thing
we were like,
ever.
it's Sting, it's got to be Sting, right?
Yep.
Um, we don't need a promo for a guy that's already been there for 20 years, but it ended up being Taker anyway. So and then the following year we always hear these rumors right before Mania and everything. Oh, Sting's coming, Sting's coming. I've hit a point now where it's like I don't want to psych myself up over it. So even if I read an article tomorrow that says 100% confirmed Sting is coming to WWE, I'm still not gonna believe it. Like
Yeah,
I'm not
until
gonna
don't
believe it.
believe it till you see it.
I'm not gonna believe it until that Raw when he, either comes down from the rafters or he comes, through that curtain. That's when I believe that Sting has come to the WWE. I want him to, and I feel that he really truly needs to. And even if it's just for one big Mania match and a Hall of Fame induction, I don't care. I would like him to do like a 1 year type limited run, come in at Mania, work through the following Mania, and then go in the Hall of Fame in a very like type of capacity. Because I would like to see him go with Daniel Bryan and Punk if Punk returns, and the Shield. Like I would love to see him involved. Tag team with Cena. I want to see different combinations of Sting in a WWE environment. So I would like to see him come in, do a year, have that two big Mania matches, and get his Hall of Fame. You know, eh, for me, being a fan of Sting, it's like all his defining moments and his legacy was in WCW, and that's owned by WWE, and we're never gonna have the proper, that proper 3-disc DVD Blu-ray, comprehensive set of his career unless he comes to WWE and works with them. Instead we're gonna probably get the self-destruction of Sting, 1-disc set, and and that's gonna be it. And I don't want that. I want him to come in, do what's right for business, do what's right for his fans, man. You know how many of his fans want to see him in WWE? I would love to see a backstage segment where he runs into Booker T or something, Ric Flair. Like, that would be awesome. And there's just so much potential there. And I don't think he needs to worry about his character or his career being messed up at this point. I got his concerns back in 2002. Now it's 2014, and I don't think that his concerns are valid anymore, because at this point he can negotiate that type of very, limited 1 year type run. I want to work with these type of people, and and that's my deal. And I'm sure WWE would be obliged. We'll get that Undertaker match, get whatever else, and and then he could retire properly in the Hall of Fame, and have that proper career retrospective with him sitting down doing his documentary, for 2 hours. That's what I want, and that's what I hope to get. So my fingers are crossed. I'm not holding my breath, because we've done that too many times and it hasn't worked out. I feel in my gut he'll probably just re-sign with TNA because it's the safe thing to do, and because I feel in the back of his mind he really does want to be that guy that never signed to Vince. So my gut tells me he's not coming, but as a fan, I really want him to come and go out the proper way in WWE.
Yeah, exactly. Sting, I really hope he does come in, even if it's, like you mentioned, one match with Undertaker. But I'd also like to see him face Daniel Bryan. But the thing is, if Sting ever gets a self-destruction DVD, that'll have to come after the self-destruction of Punk DVD, because we all know that's probably going to end up coming out. So, that's pretty much everything for this Xcess podcast, but apparently news broke late last night that WrestleMania is probably getting a shakeup, although we've heard lots of rumors about WrestleMania this year, more than any other year, in fact. Apparently, WWE's holding creative meetings at their headquarters today and Friday to discuss WrestleMania, and this all came after the Punk stuff, so you gotta figure that obviously stems from him leaving. If there is a shakeup, I don't think it's gonna be too major, because really the only major change I think that's come out since the original 5 top matches for WrestleMania came out like a week ago with the Rumble is that it's now, instead of it being Triple H versus CM Punk, it would be Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. And honestly, that is a better match to have at WrestleMania than Punk versus Triple H, because Bryan's been put down by the Authority for so long, and for him to finally get a major win over the Authority, pinning Triple H in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania, starting over 75,000 yes chants. That would be an amazing moment compared to Punk getting just a win that he probably really doesn't need over Triple H. Although we all know what happened last time Punk and Triple H had a feud, so I think it would be better if Bryan does face him. Like I said, I don't think there's going to be much of a WrestleMania shakeup. I think everything's going to stay the way it was. Although I mentioned this the last podcast, I'm not that upset that Bryan's not getting the Mania main event, because it's a business. WWE's doing what will make them money. And like I said, if Bryan ends up facing Taker somehow this year, I'd much prefer that than him winning the world title at Mania, because he can win as many world titles as he can in his next 10 plus years of his career. But facing Undertaker at Mania would be awesome. Him facing Triple H would be cool, I guess would be the proper word right now. It'd be justice for Daniel Bryan after being put down for so long. Don, what do you think about this potential shakeup for the WrestleMania card? And if it does get shaken up, if it does, do you think it will be as extreme as, every big title match or every big match switches opponents with each other? What do you think would happen if they shook up the card?
I don't think there's going to be too much shakeup, and like you said, to me, it makes way more sense to do Triple H and Daniel Bryan than it ever made sense to do Punk. Like Punk made sense a year ago. Punk doesn't make sense anymore. So I would have been interested to see like where they would have even tried to really kind of cram that angle down our throats. It's been Brian that's ever since SummerSlam has been screwed by Triple H, month after month after month after month, So it makes complete sense that Daniel Bryan would get his hands on Triple H at WrestleMania. And you said pin Triple H. I'm saying make Triple H tap, you got
Make
him
him
right there
submit
in
to
the
the
middle of
yes
the
lock.
ring.
That would do
Yes,
it too as well.
middle of the ring. Triple H has
Yep.
no choice. He taps out, and you got 70,000 people, chanting yes. It's a great moment for Daniel Bryan. Yes, it's not the title, but you know what? He just beat one of the greatest of all time in the middle of the ring and made him tap out. Because as much as people want to sit there and bitch on Triple H and rip on him, I'm not gonna. I don't do that. Like I love Triple H, and I feel like he does have a clear vision for the business, and he always gets a very bad rap. And I feel that he would have no problem putting Daniel Bryan over in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania. I know a lot of people are worried about if that match goes down, it's going to be a pedigree and then the 1, 2, 3. But I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly don't. I mean that this has been a storyline. This has been a build up, and I think as pissed off as people were that he was not in the Rumble, that just feeds to that WrestleMania story of him being held out of the Rumble and being held down by the Authority and how Triple H wouldn't give him his proper due. He gets the ultimate revenge against the boss at WrestleMania. That's pretty damn awesome, if you ask me. So I feel that that'll definitely go down, and it should go down. I don't even see why they would have been thinking in their minds, let's do CM Punk Triple H first. Because we started hearing all these rumors about a week ago of Daniel Bryan and Sheamus at WrestleMania. I don't know where the hell that came from, but I think that's one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard in my life. Like, why? Like, where the hell does that match come into play at
I
all?
think I think it's because they wanted Bryan to be buried in 10 seconds from another bro kick.
Yeah,
I think
I,
that's
I
maybe why.
guess. I don't know. They want to do it in 5 seconds. It's got to be even worse. Come on. So it's just stupid. I mean, like that rumor, I just thought was one of the dumbest things I had ever seen. And I'm still not going to put it past them that they don't put the belt on him in the Elimination Chamber. I really will not put that past them. I mean, it's hot. He's hot right now, and I know that the Mania would be a great moment to get the belt on him, but that's not happening, obviously. So why do you not have him win the Elimination Chamber? I would rather see Daniel Bryan and Batista, because Batista is definitely going to be a heel by the time WrestleMania rolls around. Based off this, if the people keep trying to do this boo crowd reaction because they think it's so cool,
And
uh,
especially after the Rumble.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like after the Rumble, and now that it's the hot new cool thing to do is boo Batista, and then then they'll just make Batista a heel, which I'm sure he's absolutely fine with because he makes an amazing heel. And then you have Bryan win the title at Elimination Chamber, and then you have Daniel Bryan versus Batista, and in the main event of WrestleMania, and he beats Batista. That's a hell of a story in its own right there too. Because Batista's already saying like, I'm back for 3 things, and then I'm gonna win the Rumble. I'm gonna main event WrestleMania, and I'm gonna win the championship. Well, how great is it when Daniel Bryan makes Batista tap out at WrestleMania, and he has taken down the animal that everyone's been so pissed about since the Royal Rumble becoming number one contender, when it won't even matter come WrestleMania because Daniel Bryan will beat him. That's another great direction that they could go in my eyes. So there's a lot of different ways. We got a lot of different things that could happen between now and then. Most likely we'll get Daniel Bryan and Triple H, and that might be better for business at this point, from just a redemption standpoint, for him to have a very big win at WrestleMania against Triple H. And he'll have obviously a better match with Triple H than Batista anyway. But I would not rule out, because I don't want to see Batista Orton, and I know my bros over at Future Endeavors do not want to see that match. They're already, if you listen to our last episode, they already talked about, if the main event is Batista Orton, they're actually hitting the
Wanna
bar.
they'll leave. They just don't want it. They'll leave.
I'm gonna be sitting there by myself watching this match, because I mean, I don't want to see the match either, but I'm not gonna leave during the main event of a WrestleMania. I don't care what the
Yeah.
match is, but that's how serious they are about it. They're talking about actually getting up and walking out during that match. So, and I think a lot of people don't want to see that. And I know, and yeah, there's the evolution history there, and they can try to play that up and stuff. But I don't want to see Batista Orton. We've already seen that before. It's done. It's old. I want to see Batista back this time to wrestle with some of these newer guys that have not been around for the past 4 years. And Daniel Bryan is a great choice for that. So I'm not going to rule out Daniel Bryan winning. He's in the chamber. This is a way that there can't really be too much really kind of outside interference, since they'll be locked up in the chamber. And this is a great opportunity for Bryan to win the championship and walk out and head into Mania as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and then take on the Animal. So um, yeah, I mean, I don't see too much of an overall shakeup at WrestleMania, but those are kind of my two directions that I'm hoping. And I think if it does end up being Triple H, that's a great direction to go. And if they were really smart, I think they should put the belt on him and let him head into Mania to take on Batista, because that's something new and fresh that we haven't seen, and it'll make Batista have that much of a better match too, being in there with somebody like Bryan.
Yeah. Speaking of Bryan, Extreme Rules, the pay-per-view after WrestleMania, 2 weeks ago, WWE did settle on Seattle, Bryan's hometown area, being the site of Extreme Rules. So I think it would make more sense, and I think it would be a better moment. I know it's WrestleMania and all, but I think if Bryan were to face Triple H, like I think, and you also think he will, and make Triple H tap out, pin him, whatever, then, he beats the boss of the company. That earns him a title shot. He beats whoever the champion's gonna be at Extreme Rules in his hometown. Yes, yes, yes. I think a hometown win for the title would be better than WrestleMania, but that's just me. I mean, he grew up near the area. I know it's way less of a crowd, but that's just a better heart-feeling moment. You know what I'm saying? If he were to win it in his home state instead of on the grandest stage of all. It sounds a little bit weird, but
If they did that though, Batista's gonna beat Orton for the title if they leave it Batista Orton. So,
yeah.
then you're gonna have Batista drop it literally a month later. Like, I don't
They've
know.
done a lot of
They've done it
crazy
before,
1 month
but
title changes,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just that to me, for an Extreme Rules. I mean, yeah, I like the idea for it being in his hometown, but I actually saw one of the supposed local lineups for Extreme Rules actually had it listed as Daniel Bryan versus Batista, and
Really?
yeah, as the main event. And and that kind of almost leads me back to the WrestleMania scenario, because you have um Batista take on Daniel Bryan for the title. Daniel Bryan beats him. Of course, we're
Batista would
usually
want his
always going to see
rematch,
the
yeah.
rematch at Extreme Rules with some kind of stipulation behind it. So I mean, so that could be just a little tidbit, a little sign, a little nugget of where we might be heading as well, too. But we'll see. Like I said, I mean, this it's very, very hard to predict WWE at times, and this WrestleMania in general as a whole, and what's going on around it, especially when it comes to Bryan and Punk and these guys, it's a very confusing time for fans. So I'm not going to be surprised by a lot that goes on, but there's a lot of scenarios and a lot of good scenarios too that could play out, and hopefully they will take some of these under advisement.
Yeah, exactly. So that pretty much wraps up this Access podcast. Don, thank you for joining me, and once again, plug all your stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's been great to be on and vent about some of this stuff. But yes, once again, please follow me on Twitter. You can follow me at DXDONMEGA. And of course, for all your wrestling stuff, you can follow Future Endeavors at Future Endeavors. Future Endeavors podcast. You can check it out. Give us a listen over at future-endeavors.com. And once again, my entertainment show, please give a follow. It will keep you up to date on everything, all the latest trailers and movie reviews. And believe me, if you want to stay up in the know of pop culture and everything, then you definitely want to follow at Am I on the Air on Twitter. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Am I on the Air, and check out the podcast, and see what's going down in the world of TV, music, movies, and everything else. So amiontheair.com, future-endeavors.com, DXDONMEGA. Thanks, James.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. Again, links will be down in the description for all of the things Don mentioned, and it's pretty crazy that the 4 years you've been doing Future Endeavors is basically the same time I've had ringsideaccess.com. It's actually absolutely nuts. I'm really glad that when you guys first started, that I started, helping you and getting the word out, and to see how far you guys have come is absolutely awesome, and I'm really proud to call you guys at the show friends. So
Awesome.
thanks again
Yeah,
for
no,
joining me.
yeah, of course. Anytime, that's why when you're looking for a guest, I definitely wanted to reach out a helping hand. You've helped us from the very beginning. And 2014 is going to be an interesting year, and it's been a great affiliate partnership. So anytime, man.
Alright, thanks again, and I would like to have you on in the future. Once again, thank you, Don, for joining me. That's going to do it for this edition of the Xcess podcast. Thank you for listening. I've been James Rolls, and I will see you next time.